Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "Want me to mess up some girl's life? Hell no." Old story, but in 2007 I was involved in a traffic accident on the I-95 I-695 ramp in Baltimore. Traffic went from the speed limit, 55 miles per hour, to a dead stop around the curve of the exit in a space of 500 feet, and it had just started raining. I and my Honda Accord managed to stop literal inches from the person in front of me's bumper. I had enough time to have half a sigh of relief before I was rear-ended so hard that the can of tea in my waist-level console cup holder wound up splattered all over the windshield. I get out of the car and the person who hit me is literally crying blood. She's driving a Saturn that is at least a decade old and the ancient airbag broke her nose and blacked both of her eyes. She's also crying for real, because this is her only transportation. I go, duck, grab an umbrella out of my now weirdly shaped backseat, and hold it over her while she sobs, explains her brakes had been locking up lately and she was literally on her way to the mechanics, and tries to text her boyfriend to pick her up. She's crying so hard that she drops her phone twice. And then a cop shows up. Baltimore cops are bastards, so he writes this girl a ticket about failure to control speed to avoid an accident, and reckless endangerment, and half a dozen other BS things to where the ticket would literally cost more than a new car and she might get her license revoked and/or jail time. She's hysterical. I talk to her, reassure her it's not her fault, and manage to swap insurance info. Fast forward 2 months. I had mild whiplash, but I'm healed up and mostly good regarding the accident. Have a new car and everything. I get a notice in the mail that I am requested to be a witness for this poor girl's trial for her ticket. Don't have to show, but it'd be nice. Duck if I'm gonna let that cop roast her, I was asked, so I'm taking a day off work to show up. I turn up in court dressed in my civil servant best, was working for the state government at the time, so however staid you imagine, multiply it by 3, and even toss on some makeup to impress the judge. I wait 3 hours for her hearing, because hell if I'm gonna accidentally be late. The cop goes first, making up a bunch of BS about how recklessly she was driving to have hit me in an accident. He was probably 10 miles away from witnessing from his response time. Then the judge calls me, and I stand up. Cop looks this weird combo of surprised Pikachu.jpg and pissed. Like he didn't expect me to show. Poor girl was already crying and starts crying more. So I get to the stand, get sworn in, and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I say that we were going exactly the speed limit. I know, because I checked my speedometer in surprise that there wasn't more traffic. That she was following a proper distance behind me, because I'd checked my rear view mirror and she was a ways off. That it had just started raining after a dry week, so the road was greasy as duck and I knew that because I'd almost slid into the car in front of me. Only saved by my car's abs. That her wheels had locked because I'd heard the screech and seen the skid marks, and that she definitely wasn't at fault because she was on her way to get her car's old ass abs fixed. And I mentioned that the cop didn't show up until 20 minutes later. I know this sounds like an "and everyone clapped" moment, but the judge did thank me for doing my civic duty and turning up. And I got a quick hug from the poor girl after the judge dismissed her charges. Anyway, Baltimore cops are bastards and if you can turn up in court to fight a traffic ticket, even someone else's, you should do so. Next one is titled, "Don't wanna give me one sick day? Fine, I'll take 5. Little bit of backstory then the meat and potatoes. This isn't some crazy story like others here but I think it fits. I work for the US Navy so our healthcare works a little different in regards to sick days. If we're deemed sick enough we get placed SIQ or sick in quarters, i.e. stay home for however long the doc says. About mid-April my tonsils start acting up. I see an ear, nose and throat drive, whose best guess is some sort of bacterial infection. They give me a steroid via IV to fight the swelling of my tonsils and put me on antibiotics with pain medication since it's hard for me to eat or drink anything and send me on my way. I get placed SIQ for 10 days and my boss isn't really happy that I can't work, but there's nothing he can do. I get better and start going back to work. Now to a few weeks ago, the last week of May. Tonsils start acting up again, but this time it gets much worse. It's Wednesday morning, I call my aunt and schedule an appointment for later that day. He checks me out and wants me to come back the following week on Tuesday so they can try to drain fluid from behind my tonsils. He writes me a blank SIQ order till Tuesday and says if I need it, use it, but it's not an official order yet. This is important. The next day, Thursday, my tonsils have inflamed so much I'm starting to have a hard time breathing, which isn't fun. Cue the trip to the ER. Another steroid IV along with IV pain meds. I get another round of antibiotics, pain meds, and also now a steroid pill pack. Now the ER doesn't really want to write me a SIQ chit even for one day, but I still feel ducking horrible. I text my boss letting him know what's up, that I'm in the ER, and just ask him for Friday off. But I tell him I'll be good to work Saturday and Sunday. I don't like to duck over my coworkers because we're short-handed and I like the people I work with. Which is why I only want one day to get some rest and real food again. He says no big deal, because remember that blank chit from my aunt? Yeah, I fill that in and send it off to my boss. Whoops, looks like I actually need Friday to Tuesday off now. I take my 5 days of rest and relaxation, then get stabbed with a needle Tuesday afternoon by my aunt. It was trash, 1/10 do not recommend. The end. If you're still reading and care at all, yes, I already have an appointment to get my tonsils removed. I'm counting down the days to get rid of these duckers. Next one is titled, "Give me a speeding ticket because you don't want to say you thought I was someone else?" Oh yes, I will go to court about that. So I'm not totally sure if this is malicious compliance or not, but here it is. There is a really huge hill leading out of the development I lived in at the time. The hill has a good quarter-mile long path from the top to the bottom of it. It is technically in a residential zone, so the speed limit, in theory, is 25 miles per hour. However, in this state, if there are no houses within a quarter mile of the road, it's regarded as being 35 miles per hour. The reality is that they won't give you a ticket for speeding, but they will get for reckless if you're doing 45 or greater. One day I'm heading out, which means going down the hill. I'm always super cautious about speed limits and I ride my brakes on this zone. I am 99% sure I never broke 24 miles per hour, so I was really surprised when the cops' lights start blaring behind me. I get down to the bottom of the hill and pull off. Cop comes up, asks for ID, but not registration, goes back to his car to run my ID. Presumably runs it, then comes back and demands my registration. He didn't ask, he demands it. This struck me as odd, but I gave him the registration. He hustles back to his car, but doesn't actually get in, so he can't run anything. He comes back and tells me he clocked me doing 26 and the speed limit is 25. He hands me a ticket and tells me I can either pay the fine online or appear in court on the date on the ticket, doesn't tell me to sign anything, and goes back to his car and leaves. So many things about this screamed that something was wrong with this. So you better believe I actually went to court. So the court date comes up, I have the day off, got my suit cleaned, and I got to court. I check in with the secretary, and there is no record of my ticket. Now I could have walked out and there was like a 99.9% chance nothing would come of it. But I didn't know that then, and I didn't want this coming back. So I was told if I wanted to wait I could see if they could slip me in at the end of the day. Okay, so be it. So Q's sitting in court for the next 9 hours. They managed to slip me in. I hand my copy of the ticket to the officer, who hands it to the judge. He opens it and begins reading aloud. Mr. Turose Prime, you stand accused of exceeding the speeding limit by. He looks at me. Looks back at the ticket. Looks back at me. Looks at the ticket. Looks back at me and says in the single most commanding voice I have ever heard, shy of a Marine drill instructor, says, "Get the hell out of this courtroom." If a judge tells you to leave the courtroom, you do it. So I left and never heard another thing about the ticket. Sort of a month later there was a report about a drug dealer being arrested not too far from where I lived at the time, and he drove the same make, model, and color of car as I was driving. I don't know it for a fact, but I think the cop pulled me over thinking he just found the dealer, found me instead and didn't want to say, "Sorry, I thought you were someone else." So he gave me a bogus ticket expecting me to just try to pay the fine online, be unable to do so and give up on it. Next one is titled, 45 Day After Holiday Lights Policy. My HOA sent me a notification my recently installed colored lights were violating the lighting policy of our community. Hello. Colored lights front yard or back are not allowed after the 45 days for a holiday. Please refer to the CC&Rs listed below about lighting. Lighting. Exterior lighting is to be understated. Fixtures, except those at the main entrance of a residence, should be shielded from view, under building eaves, recessed in niches, behind walls or landscaping. Exposed bulbs and any lighting that produces excessive glare or that shines on another lot are not allowed. Security lighting, which by its name is bright and of a general nature, has been permitted only with the understanding that it will only be used in emergencies. The maximum wattage for building lighting is 40 watts per fixture, that equates to a maximum of 400 lumens. When replacing incandescent bulbs with LED light bulbs, residents need to pay close attention to not only the lumens rating but also the Kelvin color temperature scale, K, rating. An acceptable Kelvin rating is 2700 to 3200 K range, that equates to the warm white look of incandescent bulbs. Landscape lighting is to be low voltage. Use of colored lenses or bulbs is not permitted except as holiday decoration for a period not to exceed 45 days after a holiday. My response: Hello. Thank you for the notification. I have some questions on the light policy, as I couldn't locate anything in our community documents to indicate the following. Which, if any, holidays on a 365-day calendar aren't recognized by the community? Are there required coordinating colors to holidays? Is there a limit to how far in advance we can celebrate a holiday? Is there a better time I could turn the lights back to white? Currently they're only colored from dusk to 11 p.m. and the lights revert to warm white as specified by our lighting guidelines. Looking at my calendar, May 30th 21 was the last holiday and the policy stated doesn't indicate any colors are required to coordinate with a specific holiday. So am I correct in thinking I can display colored lights until July 14th 21? If that's the case, following the 45-day rule, the 4th of July on 7 quarters, Labor Day 9/30ths, Halloween 10/31sts, Thanksgiving 11/25ths, Christmas 12/25ths, Nye 1/1, Valentine's 2/14ths, St. Patrick's 3/17ths, Easter 4/10ths, and Memorial Day 5/30ths. I'll only have about 2 weeks in August that are required to be full-time warm white and can display colored lights until around August 2022. We will be diligent in following the 45-day rule by setting a calendar reminder for the days we are to remain white. Next one is titled, Friend Can Only Bank Overtime. His boss had quite a surprise when he retired early. A friend of mine worked for a big government department. But despite their bigness, they were understaffed, and did not pay overtime. However, you could bank that overtime to take time off. And you never lost that banked time if you did not take it, say, within the year. So, when he figured out he had 2 years worth of overtime, he waited until he was 2 years from retirement and took 2 years of vacation just before retiring. Good thing he did, because cancer got him 4 years later. Next one is titled, Just Try Collecting. My oldest sister passed away several years ago and I was named her executor. When she passed, we put her house on the market and all the basic utilities were kept on as per usual for prospective buyers. But we shut off the cable TV and internet. I contact the provider to cancel service and close out the bill. They informed me that only the person named on the account could do that. I told them she had died and could provide a death certificate copy. Originals cost real money. No go, they were adamant only she could shut it off. I tried several times hoping to get a reasonable human to no avail. In the meantime I have her mail forwarded to me. Over the next several months I get bills from the provider with increasing amounts of the bill in arrears. I try one last time to contact and yea verily they'll accept payment and shut down from me. The problem is I won't pay for several months of bills after she's dead. I offer to provide the death certificate again and pay up until that date but nothing else. They're not having it. They threatened to send it to a collection agency. I told them to go right ahead and good luck with that. If you contact her tell her we miss her. Last one is titled, "Totally Not an Anti-Vaxxer Lady Demanded a Public Apology." I was in this crazy parenting group that has a lot of people with kooky opinions. Yes, there's loads of anti-vaxxers, tons of pseudoscience and distrust of medical professionals, self-styled essential oil experts dispensing dubious medical advice, etc. One lady has been non-stop posting all sorts of craziness trying to convince people vaccines, all, not just the COVID vaccine, are dangerous. I snapped and posted one of her messages to IG stories, with name and group name removed so there's no way of identifying her, calling it the very definition of anti-vax. She recognized it, and even though IG stories disappear on their own in 24 hours, she insisted I remove it, it was already gone, and post a public apology, addressed to the so-called lady that didn't vaccinate her kid, that you called her anti-vax. So I posted on my IG this apology post. Dear all, I have been asked by the so-called lady that didn't vaccinate her kid, that you called her anti-vax, whose message I posted in my IG stories yesterday to issue a public apology, swipe to see request. I am so sorry I incorrectly labeled her as anti-vax and will instead just include screenshots of her words so she can explain her position in her own words. And I posted not just the original message, but 2 other crazy anti-vax statements from her. The original IG story post only reached 1,697 people. The apology post reached 9,716 people and full of comments of people telling her she's an anti-vax Karen. A TikTok video I made about that crazy mom group jumped from under 10K views to over 45K views after the apology. Thanks for listening.